We all have a story. When we look back on our lives, we can see our ups, our downs, and how everything we've experienced has brought us where we are right now. What's more, as we look back, we can see the ways God has been at work, growing us, encouraging us, challenging us, comforting us. He's always with us, and He's calling us every day to follow Him. Today, we're going to ask you to consider what's brought you here. What events has God used in your life to bring you to this place where your path is intersecting with everyone else's here? But before we ask you to think about your personal timeline, we're going to show you how it's done. Let's look at how God has brought Life Church to the place where it is today.
Pastor Craig and Amy started this church with people in mind who were maybe uncomfortable stepping through the doors of a church.
The way this church started, they heard a song that confirmed to them, "Come as you are," that this was the time to take your appropriate step.
The words, the idea of that song is come just as you are, come to God just as you are. And that's what we wanted the church to feel like. That's what Craig and Amy's vision was.
It started in a living room, right? And then it quickly grew to a building. So I just saw this building come up our neighborhood.
And it began to grow so fast to where it led to a stage of having to do multi-site.
Craig talked about this pastor from a church from across the city. Basically, would Life Church take over?
Then became the messiness of where we started to figure out, how does this work?
Craig would preach at the original Life Church, drive over to the Metro Church. He drove back and forth. He was in person.
One weekend, I know there had been conversations before about what would it be like to use video in church and to show Pastor Craig preaching in that way. And when his son was born and he couldn't be at church the next Sunday, that Sunday morning, it was an opportunity to try it out. And the cool thing is, people responded.
It was crazy. God was truly blessing the church, and we were growing at such a speed, and we got to open up a new location in Tulsa and then a new location in South Oklahoma City. And then we thought, let's go for a new state.
So when you look at Life Church now, it's easy to think that things went really smoothly all along the way, but that wasn't necessarily the case. There were times when there were some real struggles. And an important lesson we learned was when we launched locations in Arizona.
As we went there, and honestly, as we kind of just failed at figuring out how to do church for the first time out of the state of Oklahoma, where Life Church originated, I really believe that's where God took us to school.
And so now you see things look a lot differently, and that's largely because of those important lessons that we learned in Arizona. That was also a time when our church had grown really quickly and we were struggling financially.
Our church was living paycheck to paycheck. We found ourselves with way more people and ideas than we had the resources or finances to accomplish any of these things. However, during this time, we were creating tons of content for kids, content for young adults, even stuff for the adults, all sorts of assets that really we could sell.
All the logical things said, let's start selling them, and it's going to further the mission. It seemed like it was great.
But this crazy cool thing happened, which was we gave it all away, which is mind-blowing. So all that content we were creating, we took that and we put it online so that other pastors could download it, so that other people had access, not just here, but all over the world.
It feels like it opened up this beautiful Pandora's box of all the different ways that we could give things away.
And so we saw that opportunity and jumped on it and said, we want to bring this to you.
That's what Church Online and the digital platform has allowed to do. Reach places throughout the world where otherwise they wouldn't have the church.
The YouVersion Bible app was really born out of just a question like, how can we help people read the Bible more on a daily basis? Thankfully, at the time, Apple kind of announced that they were launching an app store. And through that experience, we saw just tens of thousands of people download it that first weekend.
It doesn't matter what time of day it is. It doesn't matter if you're dressed, if you got your PJs on, you're gonna be able to open the Bible to the YouVersion app, or you're gonna be able to hop on Church Online. And I think that's the heart of our church, is we wanna meet you where you're at, and we wanna walk with you.
From there, we continued forward as a church, using what we had learned to follow God and take our next steps. We started focusing on relationships to help us build churches from the ground up in new states, invested in different ways of reaching people outside the church, and provided a platform for thousands of churches to use during a global pandemic, all while continuing to walk alongside the people in our church. These are the experiences God used to bring Life Church to where we are today. Now, we want to hear your story. Take a few minutes and think about the major life events that have brought you to where you are today. Write them out. Then, identify 3 that were especially influential. Ones you know God used to bring you here, and which will continue to impact your path moving forward. Once you're done, share what you discover with someone else.